cooperative developer. I'm a cooperative developer at Solid State, and what that essentially means is we take in the co-ops that come in through our kind of program, and we kind of help them from kind of an idea and like an inkling of an idea all the way to a fully scaled out business. We work with a multitude of different types of cooperatives or organizations. We work with nonprofits, worker co-ops, community service co-ops, recently converting existing businesses into co-ops. So it's kind of a wide variety of the products that we kind of work on. And today we're going to hopefully be able to dive a bit more into a little bit of the work that goes behind that we actually take our co-ops through as they begin to take their ideas from just an idea to reality. Oh yeah, Katrina.
Okay. Hi. Hello, everybody. My name is Katrina Mugume, and I am also one of the co-developers at Solid State. And thank you for joining this workshop. If you're here, that definitely means you have some interest or some experience in cooperative work in the co-op ecosystem. And we encourage you to ask questions. It's going to be a bit of an intensive, more so on learning how we do it or what the main parts of what we consider. And we're really glad and excited to kind of work with Dechinta. We've been up there giving workshops in the past on cooperativism and all of what it's about. And we're hoping that through these intensive workshops, those people have some interest in starting rural co-ops. We'll do so. I think there will be some funding coming up in the future for it. And I encourage you to attend all three intensives. They're really dope, and I have some great coworkers. Thanks.
Perfect. Katrina, to make it easy, because I have just notes written on the side, are you able to actually share the slides? And then we can kind of go through that way. Does that work for you?
Let me try and do that right now.
How's everyone else feeling today though? Good? I know it's 5 o'clock and everyone again is kind of getting off work and kind of going getting readjusted. And then everyone, you guys are all in northern, is it from the north or uh regions? Feel free to speak. Or
Yeah, feel free to put where you're coming from in the chat. I think we have folks from all over.
perfect. Amazing. Yukon. Is it cold up there? Honestly, I think it's cold here. Actually, it's been getting really nice the last couple of days. We had a little bit of sunshine, but hopefully it just continues to get warmer. I'm a little bit done with the rain here. Amazing. We have Adequai, we have Williams Lake, Whitehorse, Inuvik. We got a lot of variety. Amazing. Cool. And then just while we get set up, if feel free to unmute yourselves and speak as well. Um, what kind of drew you to this, to being here today? What's kind of the intentionality? And I'll let whoever's typing in the chat, you guys can type or you guys can speak, whatever works for you guys.
I'm coming from Delany, Northwest Territories. My name's Jade English, and I think one of the big intentions for me with a co-op is to find solutions for clean energy that associates the whole entire community, and it doesn't really leave anybody behind. And that way, we all benefit from the results because I think clean energy is like a huge thing moving forward, and like those kind of agreements will be like paramount for equity and just overall fairness, honesty, all those good stuff.
Perfect. Anyone else?
Can I say just hi Dabney, hi crew, and nice to see everybody. I got to witness, I think, Dabney like last year around this time making some connections when our Hyde camp in Inuvik was going on, and I'm maybe one of those people who might get grouped into the trying to transition a business into a co-op category. So I'm excited to hear more about that. Have tried to do social enterprising for a long time. There's no uh, society's registry that really covers that in NT. So I'm looking forward to seeing what co-op has to offer.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Okay, cool. I think we're just about to get the slides up. The one that you just saw on screen, that's gonna be for the second half. But we'll dive into the first half. The way we're gonna break it down is what we're thinking of doing about rough 45-ish minutes. Emily says she's about to start driving and tuning in. Amazing. Drive safe. Feel free. This is secondary. Drive. Focus on the road first. This will be recorded. Amazing. So yeah, what I was gonna say is we're gonna probably divide them into two halves. So we're gonna start with the origins of cooperative economies, and then kind of transition this, take a little bit of break, and then transition into the second half of what we are going to talk about, which is kind of the vision, mission, and a little bit of that. Cool. So officially we'll begin now. Slides. Perfect. Here we go. So welcome everybody. Today we're starting at the very beginning, the origins of cooperative economies. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of it all, we need of kind of the running, what it takes to run a co-op. We need to kind of understand where the cooperative movement comes from, what shoulders and whose shoulders are we standing on, and some of the history that's kind of been left out of the mainstream story when it comes to co-ops. This is the first module of kind of this worker owner training series that we're doing. Everything we covered today will set the foundation for what comes next. What we're going to talk about later is kind of the vision, the mission, values, and strategy work. First, we need to understand the roots. So let's kind of take a look at what we're going to cover. So here's our roadmap for at least this module. There's 6 sections. We'll start with kind of the early informal cooperative traditions, the ones that existed long before anyone in Europe even used the word cooperative. Then we'll kind of look at the Western co-op tradition that most textbooks start with. After that, we're looking to hopefully bring it back home to Canada, including some local Surrey history that might surprise you all. We're based out of Surrey, BC. And we'll talk about what's missing from the mainstream narrative, why all this matters for your co-op, and then hopefully end with key takeaways. And I want to emphasize that this isn't a history lecture for like the sake of history and just kind of, I got to sit through and learn about co-op history. Everything here connects you to the choices that you'll make as co-op owners. So let's start at the beginning. Perfect. We can go next slide. Amazing. I want everyone to kind of understand that co-ops didn't really start in a factory in England in 1844. Cooperative systems have existed for centuries all over the world, outside of what we call the formal economy, outside of government jobs, banks, and corporations. These systems were born from necessity. Communities facing famine, conflict, colonialism, or simply being shut out of formal markets figured out how to survive together. They pooled resources together, shared labor, and made decisions collectively. That's cooperation in its purest. It wasn't a business model. It wasn't a way to make money in a way it was essentially a survival strategy that was rooted in this idea of mutual aid. The key here is that cooperation is not what we often hear, a Western invention. It is an innately and a deeply human practice. What the West did was formalize it, name it, and then claim credit for it. But yeah, so cooperativism is something that we all experience in our day-to-day lives. It's something that's very human to us. So let's take a look at some of these specific examples from around the world. So there's 3 examples here, and they're all deliberately diverse. Firstly is Suma Kase from Ecuador. It translates to good living. This is an indigenous Andean philosophy that centers the well-being of the whole community, not individual wealth. It's about interconnectedness with nature, social responsibility, and a collective well-being. This isn't just a nice idea. It's actually shaped Ecuador's national approach to economic policy. Solidarity and reciprocity are at the center, not profit. Second is the Korean Dure system. Hopefully I pronounced that right. This goes back over 1,000 years. It was a community-based credit system where groups would kind of pool resources together to support each other during weddings, funerals, or disasters. There were no banks involved, no formal institutions, no crazy interest rates and crazy terms, just neighbors taking care of neighbors. And the third one is kind of closer to home. It is Indigenous communities in Canada. The Métis had communal economies based around shared labor and resources long before settlers arrived. But these ways of working together were often ignored or actively harmed by colonial rules and systems. The pattern across all three, if we take a step back and look at the patterns across all three, cooperative practices were embedded in cultural and spiritual systems long before anyone wrote a specific set of principles. Does anyone, and if anyone wants to share, does anyone recognize these kind of systems in their own family or cultural background? For me personally speaking, I come from Pakistan, and there's a lot of these local markets that are all ran by the communities, and you'll often see one shop owner working with another shop owner when they're short cash or working and having lunch together. And these ideas of cooperativism and being interconnected is existent there. And I'll give maybe a couple minutes or a minute if anyone wants to share an example that maybe they can recognize from their own family or cultural background. I know if you guys are typing, this is not a lot of time to type all your thoughts out. But if anything, like we would feel free to share it after. And I would love to hear some more examples because we're always looking to see those. Cool. Let's work on, it's on the next slide, the African Roscas, or the Rotating Savings and Credit Association. So this one is, we have a chat. Oh, that was just Emily's old chat. Amazing. This one is powerful. Kate said, to Khawar, hopefully I pronounced that right, operated cooperative jam and grain production based on their communalism values. Amazing. It's so intrinsic to us, and it's so exciting to see how it plays out in all of our lives. But yeah, going back to kind of the African Roscas, this one is powerful. In many African communities, especially West and Central Africa, people created informal lending systems called Roscas, which again is the rotating savings and credit associations. You may also hear the word tontine. Here's how they work. A group of people agree to contribute a fixed amount regularly. Each round, one person gets the whole pot. Everybody takes turns. There's no bank, there's no interest, there's no credit checks. It's community trust turning into a financial system. Another name for this is in my culture, from Pakistan, we have a similar system where it's called committee, or like a committee kind of, and it's the same principle. These systems emerged specifically because colonial economic structures excluded indigenous and Black communities from formal banking. Roscas weren't just about money. They reinforced social solidarity. You show up for the group, and the group will show up for you. And these aren't ancient history. There's a documentary called The Banker Ladies about 3 Black women in Toronto actually running Roscas for the community right now. This is a living tradition. As I mentioned, there's something similar in the South Asian community. Has anyone had any personal experience with any Roscas or any similar systems? If you want to share, these are incredibly common across diaspora communities, and it's a powerful moment of recognition. Or actually, you know what? Instead, let's get a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you have experienced something similar. Okay, we'll go forward. Cool.
I have. I'm from East Africa, And my family actually does practice this sort of Roska saving among my cousins and I. Like Syed said, we do contribute a regular amount and we do get paid out dividends at the end of the year. And we also communally contribute towards farming projects on our grandfather's land or things like that. And yeah, it's a really interesting and intimate way to save money.
Perfect. We'll go on the next slide. Perfect. So now let's go a little bit deeper on indigenous cooperativism specifically. Practices of mutual aid and collective resource management didn't just predate European settlement. There were sophisticated governance systems. And hopefully I can pronounce this right. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy is a key example. Their political and social organization reflected a deep-rooted communalism in managing resources. This wasn't just about economics. It extended into governance and how communities were run. These were systems grounded in democracy and collective responsibility centuries before the Rochdale pioneers opened the shop. I want to be direct about why this matters. When we talk about the co-op movement, we need to be honest that indigenous people were practicing these principles long before European settlers arrived and claimed to have invented them. Tina says, pre-colonialism, indigenous communities thrived this way. Everyone had roles and responsibilities in the community. It's just the way you function. Exactly. It is very intrinsic, and it's so sometimes crazy to think that people will come in or when the settlers arrived and it's like, oh, we have a better way of doing things. Just a quick anecdote. I was able to visit Tunisia last year. One of the things that we're working on here at Solid State is building cooperatives in Tunisia. And this idea that what we were doing there was bringing them the language of what they were already doing for years and years and years and years. And it just reinforces that idea that they are already experts at what cooperativism at its core is. And it's so interesting to see how we're all kind of glued and connected in that way. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide. So take a moment to read this. These informal economies, the ones rooted in community rather than individual wealth accumulation, continue to exist today in modified forms around the world. Street economies in tourist cities, mutual aid networks in urban neighborhoods, community kitchens, childcare co-ops that never really get legally or incorporated. The point is, and going back to what everyone's already said already, the point is cooperation isn't something that happened in the past. It's happening right now, often invisibly, often without any formal structure. And that's actually closer to the tradition that we're a part of than any incorporated cooperative with the existing board of directors. Perfect. I think we can move on to the next slide. So why is Solid State in this business? This is where we connect the history to us, to Solid State and kind of our co-ops and your co-op ideas. So Solid State is a nonprofit with the purpose of building a solidarity economy. We're community-centric. Our whole business model and our whole way we operate is enveloped by our community. We equip our members with the tools, skills, and access to capital needed to create businesses and jobs that directly benefit local community and the economy. We meet our community where they are and build enterprises rooted in mutual aid. Notice the language, solidarity economy, mutual aid, meet our community where they are. We're not a business incubator. You don't come in and leave. We're an informal cooperative ourselves. Even though we're a nonprofit, we act and work in cooperative values. We aim to work in a tradition that goes way further back than 1844. The history we just covered, that's our lineage. That's your lineage. So over here in this image over here, that's a little bit of our community. You can see me standing right there with the yeah, Katrina's just hovering over me. But yeah, this is just a little snapshot of our co-ops and kind of the people that are part of our community. And this was, I believe, from last year at our Cooperative Day event. And it's so exciting that we just finished our most recent one, and it's almost doubled or close to tripled in size, our community, which is amazing to see. Now, let's look at the Western co-op story. the ones most textbooks start with, and we're not starting with it, and that's a deliberate choice. So Western traditions, section 2. Early. So before I get into this, I just want to early Western cooperative economies and traditions. We're not really covering this because it's the origins of cooperation. We've already established it isn't, but because it's the tradition that shaped the formal co-op structures most of us work in with today. So let's talk about Rockdale, which is what you guys can see. 1844, Rockdale, England. 28 working class weavers and artisans were facing poverty, exploitation, and garbage quality goods from private merchants. So what they did was they pulled modest shares, opened a small store, and dedicated to run it on principles of shared ownership, democratic control. One member, one vote, and an equitable distribution on profit. This was the Rockdale Society of Equitable Pioneers, and their model worked. It was practical, replicable, and it spread. I want to be fair to the Rockdale Pioneers, though. What they did was genuinely significant. They took cooperative principles that kind of already existed in the world and created a structure that could be copied and scaled. That matters. The issue isn't with what they did, it's how the story and how their story has been told since. Here's the problem. The Rockdale model emerged from specific local conditions and struggles, but over time, it got reframed as the origin story of cooperation, the universal blueprint that all legitimate cooperatives should follow. In European and North America co-op circles, the Rockdale pioneers are taught as the founders of the modern co-op movement. Their principles became the global standard, and the narrative painted them as the first structured attempt at a democratic member-owned business. But we already know that's not true. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Korean Dura system, the African Raskas, Andean Suma Kase, all these were structured, democratic, member-based systems that came centuries earlier. The Rockdale story isn't wrong, it's just incomplete. And incomplete stories can do real harm when they become the only story. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, one more slide. We just skipped earlier. Let's do a quick timeline. So the International Cooperative Alliance, the ICA, was founded in 1895. In 1937, they codified 7 principles. By 1966, they revised them down to 6. The principles have evolved over time and will keep evolving. The main takeaway here isn't the specific principles. We'll cover those in the next module on values. The takeaway is that these principles were written by Europeans based on a European experience and then applied globally as if they were universal. Some of them are genuinely useful, but they're not the only way to define cooperation. Perfect. We can move on to the next slide. So let's take a look at a snapshot of the current movement, the cooperative identity, values, and principles. Today, the international co-op movement is organized around one definition, 10 values, and 7 principles. The definition hasn't changed. A co-op is an autonomous association of people who come together, voluntarily to meet a common needs through a jointly owned, democratically controlled enterprise. The values, self-help, self-responsibility, democracy, equality, equity, and solidarity don't change either. The principles are the guidelines for putting values into practice, and those can change. That's an important distinction. Values are the floor. The principles are the tools, and the tools can be updated. Keep this in mind when we get into our next module, which is the values and strategy module. Your co-op's values should be in conversation with these, but they do not have to be a copy-paste. Cool. Next slide. I'll give you guys a second to read this real quick, and then I'll talk about it just briefly. Cool. So, as you read, if you can go back, Katrina, real quick. Perfect. This Rockdale Center positioning often ignores and minimizes long-standing indigenous, African, Asian, and other cooperative traditions, as we mentioned earlier. It overlooks the reality that cooperation is deeply human practice that has existed in diverse forms across cultures and throughout history. And many of those traditions are grounded in a more communal and reciprocal relationship than the Rockdale model. And again, I just want to go back and just say this isn't about tearing down Rockdale. It's about being honest that cooperation has many origins, and the ones centered in the mainstream narrative happen to be white and European. Perfect. Let's bring it home to Canada. So the history of cooperatives in Canada is deeply intertwined with both settler colonialism and Indigenous resistance. Those two threads run through everything that we're about to cover. Let's start with the Indigenous co-ops. Despite cooperatives being an effective way to resist colonial systems, Indigenous communities were often sidelined into the broader Canadian co-op movement. Colonial practices tend to force European models onto Indigenous peoples, ignoring the ways that they were already governing their economies and communities. A modern example is the Nichi Commons Co-op in Manitoba. This is an Indigenous-led cooperative that focuses on economic development, but also addresses community empowerment and cultural revival. It directly challenges colonial economic systems by prioritizing Indigenous culture practices and reinvesting profit into the community. Nichi Commons isn't just a store, it's a statement. Indigenous communities can build economic institutions on their own terms, grounded in their own traditions, and they don't need a Rockdale model or the Rockdale model to do so. Next slide, please. Let's do a quick overview of the settler co-op history in Canada, because this is context that you should know. Dairy co-ops from the 1860s onwards, small groups of farm families in Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada pooled surplus milk into butter, cream, and cheese. Dairy was Canada's top export for a while. Today, co-ops like AgriPure and Gailey represent about a quarter of Canada's dairy production. Grain and pool marketing. On the prairies, farmers formed co-ops to cut out middlemen and get better prices for wheat. The Saskatchewan Cooperative Elevator Company in 1911, wheat pools in the 1920s. Over time, many of these were absorbed into large cooperations as farming industrialized. Credit unions. The one started in 1900 in Lévis, Quebec, that's Desjardins. The Antigonish movement spread credit unions across Atlantic Canada, especially during the Great Depression. Today, Vancity, Meridian, and Desjardins serve millions of Canadians. And lastly, retail and fuel. Farmers buying clubs grew into Federated Cooperatives Limited, which now runs major fuel operations and retail stores across Western Canada. This is a lot of info. The point of this is to kind of show the breadth of co-ops in Canadian history. Just kind of a picture of how widespread this model has been. We'll move something closer to home. This is actually super, super close to my house. I live about 5 minutes away from Strawberry Hill. This one is local and important to me as well. Surrey, which is where we're from, has a rich and often overlooked cooperative history shaped by Japanese Canadian farmers. In the early 1900s, Japanese strawberry farmers in areas like Strawberry Hill, which is down the street, which actually got its name from these farms, built thriving agricultural communities. They formed what we call the Surrey Berry Growers Cooperative and the Strawberry Hill Japanese Farmer Association. These weren't just about farming. They reflected values of mutual support and collective action. And then it was destroyed. During World War II, Japanese Canadians were forcibly removed from their land, interned, and had their farms and property seized. What was once productive farmland was then taken and in some cases turned to public land or parks. This is the community, as I mentioned before, that we work in. Strawberry Hill is right here. When we talk about co-op history in Surrey, this is a part of it, and it's a history about cooperation and injustice. So let's go about this quote about co-op history. The thread through all of this, perfect. Thank you, Tina. Thank you for joining us. The thread through all of this is Indigenous communities have relationships built on sharing, caring for the land, and supporting each other, not just about making money. Prairie wheat pools were about farmers standing together against unfair practices. Japanese Canadian berry co-ops were about helping each other, and in each case, the history was disrupted, erased, or just pushed aside. Co-op history in Canada is not a simple success story. It's a story of cooperation and a story of who got left out, pushed out, or forced to conform. Which brings us to the problems with the mainstream narrative. Section 4, the issues with Western narratives and models. We can actually go back a slide and then we'll move in. Western co-op models often focus only on saving money and are making profit, but they leave out the bigger picture, the culture, values, and the struggles of people who started co-ops. This section is about being honest about what's broken in the mainstream co-op narrative so we can build something better. This might be uncomfortable, but it's important. Cooperatives in Canada were sometimes used as tools of colonial control. In some parts of the country, co-ops were introduced as a way to organize Indigenous farmers to grow export crops, undermining traditional self-sustaining agricultural practices. They were also a way for colonial powers to restructure Indigenous communities to fit colonial economic models. The co-op as a tool of liberation can also be seen as a tool of control. It depends on who designs it, who controls it, and whose interest it serves. Next slide, please. So there are 3 specific issues, and we'll go over all 3. Firstly, right in the middle, the exclusion of Indigenous practices. Western co-ops were often forced onto Indigenous people and ignored their own economies, which were already based on sharing, working together, and caring for the land. The Haudenosaunee operated through the Great Law of Peace, which embodies the very principles of cooperations that co-ops should aim for, but it was never framed that way. Second, narrow economic frameworks, all the way to your right. Formal co-ops were often seen as businesses that can help lower costs, but they can also be a way to bring people together, support fairness, and strengthen communities and promote shared decision-making. When we only see co-ops through an economic lens, we miss out on most of the picture. Third, and lastly, elitism and gatekeeping. Many modern co-ops have been criticized for exactly this, especially in youth and racialized communities. Older member-controlled decision-making and younger or marginalized people have limited access to leadership. This reproduces the same colonial patterns of power and exclusion that co-ops are supposed to challenge. Next slide, please. For many Indigenous communities, co-ops are not just about making money. They're about caring for the whole community. Economic development goes hand in hand with cultural renewal and community healing. Nietzsche Commons is a living example of that. This is the model that Solid State aspires to, not just building businesses, but building community power. So why does this all matter for you right now as you're building your co-op or as you have your ideas? Next slide. Knowing co-ops and where cooperatives come from help us avoid past mistakes. When we understand the impact of colonialism on co-ops, we can build cooperatives that are fair, open to everybody, and respectful of different cultures. This isn't academic. If you don't understand the history, you risk building a co-op that accidentally reproduces the same patterns of exclusion. Understanding it means that you can build something that's genuinely inclusive, genuinely democratic, and rooted in community traditions that were here before any of us. Let's go over to key takeaways. 1, cooperatives must be understood as community-based systems out of mutual aid and solidarity, not just economic structures. The moment you reduce the co-op down to a business model, you've lost the plot. 2, we need to break down Western and white narratives that have left out other communities and help make the co-op movement in Canada mostly white. That's not an option, it's the history. 3, understanding diverse, non-Eurocentric cooperative traditions help us adapt cooperatives to today's challenges to help build more inclusive, democratic, and culturally ground models. That's what Salt State is trying to do. That's what your co-op can be. Thank you. In our next session, we'll kind of take everything that we've talked about today and put it to work, defining your co-op's vision, mission, values, and strategy. That is the history of the foundation. The next module is where you'll start building. Perfect. I think that's going to conclude the first. Any questions, any thoughts? Katrina and I are here to answer. Perfect. If not, we are looking at, it's 5:43. So maybe I think, Dabney, do you think it's cool we take about a 5 to 10 minutes, maybe at 5:50, or if you guys need 15, we could start. Perfect. Welcome back. In our last session, about 15 minutes ago, we went deep into the origins of cooperative economies, the informal traditions, the Western narrative, the Canadian history, and the stuff that gets left out. Today, we're going to take all of that and putting it into work. This session is about 4 things: your vision, mission, values, and strategy. These are the foundation of every decision your co-op will make, from who you are as a member to how you split surplus to what work you say yes or no to. If the origin session that we just did was about understanding whose shoulders we're standing on, this is about building something on that foundation. So you guys, perfect. So yeah, let's hop over to the section. Next section. Just one back real quick. So this module is going to be 8 sections. We're going to start with vision and mission, what they are, how they're different, real co-op examples, then core values, what makes a strong value versus a weak one. After that, strategy. What is it? Why our co-op needs one, and the components of a strategic plan. We wrap with team activities, templates, and some key takeaways. Same as last time. If you guys have any questions, jump in with questions as we go. Let's get into it. So vision and mission statements. Think of your cooperative as a ship. Your vision is the destination, the place on the horizon that you're kind of sailing towards. Your mission is what you do on the ship every single day to get to that goal closer. The vision is a big, ambitious, future-facing idea. The mission is more grounded and present tense. You need both. A vision without a mission is just a nice idea, and a mission without a vision is just work with no clear direction. Together, they give your team a shared language. When a tough decision comes up, should we take this on? Should we take on this contract? Or should we bring in a new member? You can point to your vision and mission and ask, does this move us closer or further away? Remember what we talked about last session. Co-ops that didn't have this clarity often got absorbed or dismantled. The prairie wheat pools that became Viterra. The Surrey bear growers whose community was destroyed by internment. A clear shared vision doesn't protect you from external forces, but it does protect you from drifting apart internally. Cool. Next slide, please. So why does this matter for a worker co-op? There are 4 reasons, and they're especially important in a workers co-op where everyone is both a worker and an owner. First thing is alignment. You don't have a boss setting the direction. Everybody needs to be rowing the same way. Your vision and mission make that possible. Decision making. When things get ambiguous, and they will, your vision and mission become your compass. Instead of arguing opinions, you can ask again, which is more aligned with our mission, which is getting us closer to our goal. Communication. When you're talking to a potential client, a funder, a community partner, your mission is your elevator pitch. It tells people exactly who you are. And finally, motivation. Co-op work is hard work. There will be days when it feels easier to just get a regular job. Your vision reminds you of why you're doing this. Let's get a really clear difference between the two. This chart is one of the most useful things to reference when you're drafting. Teams mix these up constantly. So let's walk through the key differences. Tense. Vision is future tense, a world that doesn't really exist yet. Mission is present tense, what you're doing right now. Focus. Vision is about the change you want to see in your world and your community. Mission is about what your co-op specifically does. Time. Vision is kind of 10 years plus, even in some cases 5 years out. Mission is today. And here's an important one. Your vision should rarely change. It's kind of like your North Star. Your mission might evolve as your co-op grows. Quick test you can do is if vision could double as your mission, it's probably not ambitious enough. And if your mission sounds like a motivational poster, it's probably too big. And other things as you can see is visions are more ambitious and inspiring. Missions are clear and specific. There's steady length and those minor differences. So let's look at some real co-ops to see this in action. Next slide, please. So these are two real vision statements from co-ops you might recognize. Van City Credit Union. Vision statement is a transformed economy that protects Earth and guarantees equity for all. Notice what's not in there. There's no mention of banking, credit, or financial services. Their vision is all about the world they want to create, not what they sell. And remember, we talked about Van City last session as part of the credit union movement that started with Desjardins in 1900s. They've come a long way, but their vision still isn't about a bigger bank. It's about a transformed economy. Mondragon, which is a cooperative city in Spain, their vision is a more equitable and solidarity society through business transformation centered on people. Again, no mention of manufacturing or any specific product or societal change. That's the pattern. Your vision describes impact, not activities. So let's compare these two mission statements. Next slide, please. So the first example is the Shift Delivery Co-op. I don't know if you've ever seen those guys in Vancouver. They ride on these tricycles which have this big cargo container in the back. But they tell you exactly what they do. What they do, what they deliver, and how they do it. Electric trikes and why their carbon footprint. So when you see we use electric cargo tricycles to deliver goods around the city while reducing our carbon footprint and impacting our communities in a positive way. They're telling you what they do, which is delivery, how they do it, which is electric cargo trikes, and why for their carbon footprint and community. You read that and you know exactly what the co-op is about. There's a bakery in San Francisco called the Arizmendi Bakery. They're a worker-owned bakery. And what their mission, as you can see, is to operate a worker-owned cooperative bakery that provides fairly compensated employment while offering the surrounding community high-quality baked goods at reasonable prices. They're focusing, every word is doing the work, the what, the who, and the how. When you draft yours, push for this level of specificity. If someone outside your group read your mission and couldn't tell what you'd actually do, it's too vague. Next, please. Pause on this. Your vision inspires and gives direction. Your mission grounds your team in daily purpose. Together, they help your cooperatives make decisions, attract members, and stay aligned when things get challenging. That last part, staying aligned when things get hard, is the whole reason we do this. When everything's smooth, you don't need a mission statement. It's when things are messy that these become essential. Vision and mission give you direction, but how you travel matters too. That's where values come in. Next slide. Your values are the non-negotiable principles that guide how you treat each other, how you make decisions, and how you show up in your community. Excuse me. In a worker co-op, this is different from any other workplace. Every person in the room is both a worker and an owner. You're making decisions together, sharing profits together, holding each other accountable. Values are how you do that without falling apart. And here's the key insight for this whole section. The difference between strong values and weak values is specificity. Anyone can say, we value integrity. The question is, what does integrity actually look like in your co-op? That's why every value needs an action statement. Next slide, please. Let's talk about, again, why values matter. 5 reasons, super quick. Number 1, culture building. Values shape your workplace culture before any policy manual ever will. Conflict resolution. When there is, and there will be conflict, because you're humans making decisions together about money and work. Shared values give you common ground when you disagree. Hiring and membership. When someone wants to join your co-op, values help you figure out if they're a fit beyond just the technical skills that they bring. Decision making. When the right choice isn't obvious, values are the tiebreaker. And lastly, external trust. Customers and partners trust co-ops that actually live their values. It's not enough just to list them on a website or a business card. Next slide, please. You'll recognize this from the origin session. The ICA, the International Cooperative Association, defines 6 shared values for all co-ops worldwide: self-help, self-responsibility, democracy, equality, equity, and solidarity. Quick reminder on a distinction that trips people up. Equality means everyone has equal rights. Equity means people are treated fairly, which sometimes means differently based on need. Both matter. Now, here's where the origin contexts matter. These values, as we mentioned earlier, were codified by a European institution based on a European experience. They're genuinely useful, but they're not the only tradition. Sumakase centered interconnectedness with nature. The Haudenosaunee centered collective governance. Rosca's centered communal trust. When you define your values, you don't have to limit yourself to what the ICA wrote down. Draw on whatever traditions resonate with your team. The ICA values are, again, the floor, not the ceiling. Perfect. Here's what strong values look like in practice. The Woodshop Workers Co-op, which is also out of Vancouver, their value is sustainability. But they don't say the word. They say, we prioritize using reclaimed lumber from local demolitions rather than buying new wood. That's an action statement. You can observe it and hold someone accountable to it. Solid state. One of the big values, we value transparency. The action with that, all financial information, including pay rates, is available to every member. That's bold and very specific. If someone joins and wonders what transparency means, that sentence answers it. When you write your values, push to this level. If your action statement could apply to any business on earth, it's not specific enough. Perfect. Again, reminder that anyone can say we value integrity. The real question is, what does the integrity look like in your co-op? And again, that's why every value needs an action statement. No exceptions. Now let's cover the mistakes teams make so you can skip them. There are 5 common mistakes that we see. Again, first thing is values without actions. We've covered this. A value without no action is just a word on a wall. Too many values. If you have 10, you effectively have none. 3 to 5 values is something that is truly non-negotiable, and that's kind of where the sweet spot lies. Generic values. If your values could apply to any business on earth, they're too generic. Excellence. That tells me nothing about your co-op and your idea. Aspirational only values. Include some you're growing into, sure, but at least some should reflect what you're already doing. Otherwise, it can seems performative. And the big one, skipping discussion. Values that 1 or 2 people write and hand to the group don't stick. Every founding member needs a voice. That's not just a cooperative principle, it's how you get actual buy-in. Remember what we said about gatekeeping last session? This is where it starts. If your values are written by 2 people and imposed on 10, you've already built an exclusionary structure. Okay, now you've got vision, you've got mission, and values. How do you actually get from here to there, though? That's where strategy comes in. Again, now you have 3 things. Your vision, which is where you're going. A mission is what you do every day. And values is how you treat each other. Strategy is that fourth piece. It's the bridge that connects all of this to the real world action. A strategy answers one question. Given where we want to go and what we stand for, how do we actually get there? It turns aspirations into priorities, timelines, and accountability. Here's why this matters. Without strategy, a co-op can have a beautiful vision and strong values and still drift. You end up reacting to whatever comes next, a client here, an opportunity there, instead of building towards something deliberate. We saw this in the origin session. The prairie wheat pools had strong cooperative purpose, but without strategic adaptation, they got absorbed into corporations like Viterra. The co-op intent was there, the strategic plan to sustain it wasn't. Next slide, please. So let's quickly clear up what strategy is and what it isn't. Strategy is a set of deliberate choices about what to focus on, and this is crucial, what to say no to. It is a roadmap connecting your vision and mission to concrete goals. It's a shared agreement about priorities, and it's a living document that changes and adapts as conditions change. Strategy is not a to-do list. It's not a document someone writes once and you file it away. It's not something that once leadership decides, it just stays there, and it's something that only leadership decides. In a worker co-op, everyone has a stake, and it's not a guarantee of success. It's your best informed plan, and you'll revise it as you learn. The saying no part is where most co-ops struggle. Strategy is as much about what you won't do as what you will. If you say yes to everything, you don't have a strategy. You have a reaction pattern. So let's talk about a bit more about why strategy matters. Next slide, please. In a traditional business, strategy is set by the CEO or a consulting firm. In a worker co-op, every member, again, has a stake. That makes strategic planning both important and more powerful. The 4 reasons. Number 1, shared ownership of direction. Everyone needs to understand and buy into the plan. If 3 members are pulling away and 2 are going a different way, you don't have a co-op, you have a tug of war. Resource allocation. Most co-ops start with limited resources. Strategy helps you focus time, money, and energy on what matters most. Avoiding mission drift. This is a real risk. Without a plan, co-ops take on work that pays bills but pulls them away from their mission and values. Think of it this way. If the Surrey berry growers had survived internment, would they still be a strawberry co-op in 2026? Or would they have drifted into something unrecognizable? Strategy is how you hold the line on who you are. And finally, measuring progress. Strategy gives you something to measure against. Otherwise, how do you know if you're succeeding? So how it fits together. Next slide, please. Here's a picture. Vision at the top, your 10-year horizon. Mission below, your daily work. Below that, your values, how you treat each other. Strategy at the bottom, binding them all together. Your priorities and goals for the next 1 to 3 years. Each layer builds on the one above. Your strategy should serve your mission. Your mission should move you towards your vision. Your vision and your values should run through all of it. If someone proposes a strategic goal that conflicts with your values, it's a bad goal. If your daily work drifts from your mission, strategy pulls it back. That's how the 4 pieces keep each other honest. And here's a thread back to the origin session. The co-ops that survived and thrived, Desjardins, Mondragon, H.E. Commons, had all these 4 in alignment. The ones that got absorbed or collapsed usually had a strong mission but weak strategy, or strong economics but weak values. Does that kind of make sense? Seeing it visually? A little thumbs up? Or a yes? Works as well. Amazing. Next slide, please. A strategic plan does not need to be a 50-page document. At its core, it answers 5 questions. 1, where are we now? Your honest assessment, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, challenges, what's working and what isn't. 2, where you want to be. Set 3 to 5 strategic goals for the next 1 to 3 years that move you towards your vision. 3, how will you get there? For each goal, define key actions, who's responsible, and what resources you need. 4, how will we know? Pick measurable indicators. It doesn't have to be complicated. For something like 10 active clients by December is a perfectly good metric. Lastly, how will we stay on track? Regular check-ins. Quarterly is what we see as a common check-in time. But review progress has to happen as a team, not just leadership. Again, you want everyone to buy in. Let's talk a bit more about, just wrapping up on this, the difference between co-ops and traditional business. This slide captures what makes a co-op strategy fundamentally different. Look at the comparisons carefully. Traditional businesses, again, the strategy is created by the CEO and board, driven by profit, benefiting shareholders, reviewed annually, top-down accountability. Success is measured by revenue. In a worker co-op, strategy is created by all the member owners. They're driven by mission and values and well-being, benefits workers in the community. They're reviewed quarterly as a team. We hold each other accountability through peer accountability, and success is measured by impact, sustainability, and member satisfaction. This isn't just philosophy. It changes how you do strategy. Every member in the room, when you set goals, your definition of success includes, are we treating each other well? And are we making a difference? That's the same expansive view of cooperation that we talked about in the origin session. Co-ops as a community system and not just businesses. So I think we wrap it up with this quote. Vision without strategy is a dream. Strategy without values is just a business plan. In a worker co-op, strategy is how you turn shared purpose into shared progress. Shared purpose into shared progress. That's what all of this is for. So let's talk about what you're going to do with all of this. Here's where the real work begins. 4 activities your team can do together. And what we like to do is, this is an activity that we take our co-ops through, is set aside 60 to 90 minutes for each. You can spread them across multiple sessions. The activity 1, draft your vision statement. Again, start with individual reflection. Each person answers, if our co-op succeeds completely, what does the world look like in 10 years? Then share, find common themes, and draft together. Again, focus on impact, not activities. Activity 2, draft your mission statement. 3 questions. What do you provide? Who do you serve? And how do you do it? Then check. Does it reflect that you're a worker co-op? If it could belong to any other business, revise. Activity 3, define your core values. Brainstorm individually, share, group those similar values, and narrow down to 3 to 5. And again, remember, write an action statement for each. Test each one. Would this help you make a hard decision? And remember, draw on your own decisions and backgrounds. Don't just rely on the European ICA list. And lastly, begin your strategic plan. Assess where you are now, set 3 to 5 goals for year 1, assign actions and owners, and agree on a review cycle. Next slide, please. Here's some quick templates for vision, mission, and values. And you guys can obviously reach out and we can send you some of the templates that we have, but I've kind of put them all on this slide over here. So as you can see, the vision starts with, we envision a world or community where blank, then add because we believe that, and blank, and you can combine this into 1 or 2 sentences. Mission, again, answers 4 important questions. What do you provide? Who do you serve? How do you do it? And what makes you a co-op? Answer in 1 to 3 sentences. And your values. You name your value. You define what it means to your team. You write an observable action and describe a scenario where it guides a decision. 3 to 5 values. The templates include checklists. Use them. They're there to keep you honest. And then lastly, these are key takeaways for this section right over here. 1, your vision is the destination. Your mission is a daily journey. Together, they keep your co-op aligned. 2, core values need specific, observable action statements to have any real meaning. Words on a wall don't build culture. Practice behaviors do. 3, strategy is the bridge between aspiration and action. Without it, you're reacting instead of building. 4, In a worker co-op, all four of these are created together, owned together, and reviewed together. That's what makes you fundamentally different from a traditional business. That's the legacy of every cooperative tradition that we've talked about in Module 1. From the Dura system to the Nietzsche Commons, cooperation has always been about shared decision-making. 5, these are living documents. Revisit them at least once a year, and definitely whenever a new member joins. And I'll leave you guys with this. Next slide, please. Focus on getting a strong first vision that your whole team believes in. It doesn't have to be perfect. Perfect is the enemy of done. What matters is that everyone contributed and everyone can stand behind it. You'll revise these as your co-op grows. That's not failing, it's learning. All I want to say is thank you guys again for your time across both of these sessions over the last couple hours. You now have the history and the tools. The next step is yours. If you have a team already, or if you're just by yourself, sit down and start drafting. If you're stuck, you can reach out to Solid State or reach out to one of us and we can help you. Thinking back about both sessions, hopefully there's the origins and kind of this activity. Hopefully there's things that have changed how you think about the world of co-ops. And if there is, I would love to hear any ideas. But thank you.